You maybe heard the news that Far Cry 7 will have a timer, which means that you need to complete the game in 24 real life hours, which would be 72 in-game hours. And I saw like many comments under my Sunday video and the Far Cry video I did here, saying, for example, if Far Cry 7 is on a timer, it will be the first Far Cry game I don't play. I usually look forward to getting the platinum for each installment, but that can easily change. Okay, that doesn't sound great. I hate missions with time limits, so I will absolutely hate an entire game with a time limit. Ubisoft better rethink their plans on that one. I saw many comments like that. I want to show more comments in a moment because some have like thoughts on how this could work. But let's first go over the news once more. We go to Insider Gaming, link to their article in the video description. So they spoke with Ubisoft developers who are actually working on Far Cry 7. Speaking with sources, it's understood that the next entry to the series will be a non-linear story, with the story being centered around rescuing the player's kidnapped family. It was said that the game's plot revolves around a wealthy family that has been kidnapped by a conspiracy group currently called the Sons of Truth. Again, the name could still change. While exact, finite details are subject to change due to the game's stage of development. It was said that the premise of the campaign is for the player to rescue their entire family within a specific time frame. Currently, the current in-game timer stands at 72 hours or 24 hours in real time. But the timer can be paused when the player enters one of their safe houses, it was said. So, probably like in Far Cry 6, you had these sort of safe areas, these camps, where you would see your character in third person. Probably when you just walk around there, the timer won't move. And we also learned from a new rumor that the main character basically has a watch, and that shows you the timer. Far Cry 7's non-linear story means that the family members do not need to be rescued in order, and some family members can be killed, which has an impact on the story. While details are still a little murky, it's understood that the goal is to take down the Sons of Truth, and in order to complete the game 100%, you will need to rescue all your family members safely. To find your family members, it was said that Far Cry 7 introduces a new interrogation mechanic to the game, which doesn't necessarily mean that you will get the information you need from the enemy. Sometimes the enemy will give up information, sometimes they will lie, stay quiet, or even sometimes escape. So really like LA Noire vibes from that, which could be cool. And of course Ghost Recon had that sort of intel system as well, but that was kind of boring. You would have an enemy, like you would like put a gun to their head and then be like, tell me about it, and then they would just give you the information, and you got a marker on your map and you would go there. So yeah, again, we have comments talking about this. I will not buy the next Far Cry game if it's like that and if it's mandatory or I fail. No thanks. Then we also have this one. I'm busy. I have a business and a family. I play single-player games as an escape at my leisure. This timer thing isn't going to work for me. I'm out. I think, obviously, hearing the idea that in a game like Far Cry, where it's mostly about, like, all the trailers, usually the first trailers are like, you see a guy with a gun or a girl with a gun and a huge open world in front of you, and it's like, yo, do what you want, it's up to you, you can go right, left, you will see an explosion there will be an enemy attacking you, you will get hit by a car, and there are like crazy things, of course, that can happen in the game. But the fact that like there's like a fishing activity, the fact that you can like choose at any moment what to do and get lost in sometimes like this tropical world, or the settings are always like fun to explore, of course, is nice. But I get that if you have this sort of this timer constantly in your mind, you should, I mean, that's what we're kind of thinking here, be like, okay, I want to do this side mission, this person needs my help, or I want to check out this cave that I like found, but I'm on this timer, and if I don't go to, I don't know, my daughter or my sister or something like that, in the next hour, she will die. That is kind of probably the thing that we're all thinking is probably going to happen. And I agree, that doesn't sound great. And if you play games to relax, especially like you have the people that love the competitive games. I'm always I'm not really a huge fan of them. Like sometimes I do, but mostly I play games to relax, so I don't want to be like worried about the leaderboard or reaction and all that sort of stuff. I want to just take my time, take in the world, and take out the enemies at my pace. Yeah, so for a game like Far Cry, it might not work. We of course have had this before, which is like Dead Rising. That the game also has a 72-hour limit, which the player will have to complete the story within before the time expires. But as this like Steam page notes as well, worried about the time limit? No need. Basically, what they're saying is, when you fail main case, just keep playing. Kill psychopaths, rescue survivors, search every nook and cranny, experiment with the game mechanics, level up a lot, blah blah blah. You will then get an ending, but not the best ending. But it is one of the endings that you can only get by doing this anyway. But then you can do like a second playthrough, and that will be much easier because you can 100% focus on the main story and stuff you haven't done the first time around. Your levels carry over. So that could be like one of the ways they are basically, for one, making the game way more replayable. But they could be like, okay, so first time you enter Far Cry 7, you can still do what you want, but know that there is this time limit, and at like 12 real hours, people might die, because I really hope that they have like this sort of timeline for stuff that happens at every hour in the game, and that maybe your sister is at a random location between the first hour and the 5th hour of your playthrough, but then at like hour 5, they move her to like another location. So I might tell you, yeah, you have to go there to rescue her, and then you go there, but because you're later in the game, she's not there anymore. I think those things could be really cool. And then, yeah, you fail. But that's kind of part of the game experience, maybe, where, yeah, you make mistakes in your first playthrough, but then the second time you enter the game, you have played the side content, you kind of know what to look for. Okay, I'm not going to bother with that. Now I'm really going to focus on rescuing my family because I know where they are. And maybe that could be like a fun twist. Like, what we really saw with Far Cry 6 is that formula that started with Far Cry 3 was great. It worked. And Far Cry 5, like, they all had some twist. Far Cry 6 just did not do a lot to change the formula and to introduce enough of new mechanics to make that exciting enough for people. So they have to do something different. And that's why I'm like kind of, not maybe applauding is the right word, but I'm interested in this. Sounds different enough to like, they don't want to like change too much. Of course, another thing of the rumor is that, yeah, they're adding more movement mechanics, which seems like a logical step that a lot of first-person games do. You can vault, you can run, slide, all that sort of stuff. I mean, it was already in the game, but basically you have more movement freedom than in the previous Far Cry games. But that's not enough. Like, that feels like a logical step. Having a twist like the timer, and I just think that we have to see how they implement it. I agree, having this like thing breathing down your, basically constantly being stressed because you're like, but maybe if you are like, okay, my first playthrough, I'm just gonna see what happens, but then the second playthrough, I'm gonna like get, so maybe you're not supposed to finish the game in one playthrough. That's what I'm kind of like getting at here, which could be interesting. And then we also have this comment that I wanted to show you here. I think the only way this could work is if the whole game and map is designed around it. You can't put a stopwatch in a normal Far Cry game telling the player you need to get back to the main story or your family dies. That would be dumb and an annoyance that doesn't add anything. I think it has to be designed like you can go anywhere in the map and still progress the story. There are multiple ways to achieve your objective. In that way, you could combine the urgency with the freedom to explore and have it a very replayable game. So basically, by doing this side content, still like you're rewarded for exploring because maybe you find intel about your family that you otherwise would have missed. So it's not that you have this marker on your map that says go here to complete the main story or like do a main story mission. It's more like everything you do, all the side content maybe helps you save your family member. So you don't have these super scripted main missions, maybe only a few of them, but apart from that, you're like completely free to do what you want, and everything you do gets you closer to the goal of saving your family. Again, that's another, I think, very interesting comment here from Mr. Haas, which could also make things more exciting. Dead Rising and Deathloop mixed. Again, yeah, Deathloop, of course, was also about repeating the cycle. Of course, those cycles were very short, but I think that was an interesting idea, and maybe they are kind of looking at that as well. And they were always looking with Far Cry to make that game more replayable. And like some games like Far Cry 5, basically if you completed that, if you did all the camps, there were no enemies in the world anymore. It was like empty. So yeah, then you would drop it pretty fast. And they, of course, in New Dawn introduced the expeditions. In Far Cry 6, they had these other types of expeditions where you would go out to a different part of the country, basically. Or I think in New Dawn you would actually take like the helicopter. I think in Far Cry 6 you would like take the cab, and you had these replayable missions. So they were always looking at ways to make the game more replayable. And yeah, this timer, implementing that in the main game, could be a way to do it. And having the timer for campaigning doesn't mean you won't be free to explore after it. That's another great point, Jay Forian. Yeah, it's just that people don't want to be told what to do. I think that's kind of the main issue here. And yeah, that could easily be, maybe you want to explore the game immediately and not after the main story. In every Far Cry game, you can focus on the main story and then explore afterwards. But with a timer, it might mean that you're kind of forced to only do it that way, even if you want to complete every region and then move on to the next.